Hi business creators, it's Claire from Claire Wright, and today I'm going to do a bit of a talk about a book I've been reading. So lately I've been on a bit of a money book binge and thought I would share some of them with you, review, overview and discussion on some of the points in them in case you don't find reading money books before bed as interesting as I do. So the first one I'm going to start with is this one, Your Money or Your Life, 9 Steps to Transforming Your Relationship with Money and Achieving Financial Independence, written by Vicki, Robin and Joe Dominguez. Now, this is a old book. It's not an old book, it's a book that's been around for a long time and it's gone back and been revisited. And there are 9 steps in case you're interested, and I'm sure these are available on the internet. The first one is to kind of look backwards, look at what you've earned in your life, look at what that has given you. It kind of gives you that perspective on your earning potential, what you've been able to generate, and also how well or otherwise you may have used that money. So kind of net worth, as well as kind of all the things you've brought in, which could be quite eye-opening depending on your earning history. The second step is converting this concept of money, and there's a whole discussion on what is money, which is actually really interesting, into what the authors describe as life energy. So it's that trading hours for dollars principle, and they have you work out how much it actually costs you to have a job or to earn an income, how much that actually generates for you. So looking at beyond just the what's my gross income and how many hours do I work at a job, but like adding in things along the lines of commuting and having to relax and having to take vacations and having to go to Friday night drinks and having to spend money on clothing and transport, all those sort of things. So it's beyond just that I earn whatever $100,000 and work 40 hours a week. It takes it kind of beyond that. So if you weren't working, what expenses and time wouldn't you be incurring? So you're working out really what the real hourly wage is. Then in step 3, and this is something I recommend pretty much a lot is tracking where it all comes from and tracking where it all goes. And obviously this is not just business, this is personal. So tracking your expenses in life, where are you spending money, and all of that. And the way the book describes it is quite manual, but you can actually just use an app. There are lots of apps. The one I use, Pocketbook, it's free. You can do it sometimes with your bank, they have them, but you need to bring together all the ways you spend money. So if you do have different accounts, different credit cards, that sort of thing, you do need to be able to pull all of those together, which is why I like Pocketbook. And it also does income as well. And then guess what you do? You convert all of those spending to your life energy hours. So if your average earning rate is, I don't know, $50, and something costs you $100, then was that worth 2 hours of your energy? So it's actually really interesting. And what it's doing is it's giving you attention and transparency, because when we're just spending a bit here, a bit there, it's really piecemeal and it's hard to see until you bring everything together. And that's kind of the key in this step. In step 4, they ask you to go through and ask certain questions about your spending. Did you receive fulfillment? Was it worth the life energy? Is it supporting your values? Is it supporting the planet? Those sort of questions. So you can see if your spending is actually aligned with who you are. And that's a really interesting exercise to go through when you figure out what your values are. Maybe the environment's important to you, but you find yourself spending money on things that maybe aren't that environmentally friendly. that sort of thing. And it's about bringing awareness to those so that you will start to change your behavior naturally and start to ask that question before you spend it, so you can start to make kind of natural, not corrections, but move more towards the values you actually want to live in life. Then we make it visual in step 5, and you actually create a chart, and this was the most fun part for me because I just love using spreadsheets and making charts. So you chart on a monthly basis total income, total expenses, and then you start joining those to see how that goes. So I have only done April, and I am actually really looking forward to doing May, even though my expenses already feel like they've gone way high. But in step 6, that's where you start to look at minimizing your spending. How can you spend less? Because one of the ways that most people would agree you achieve financial independence is by spending less than you earn. I think that's probably universal across everybody. And making sure you're spending your life energy wisely, because you only have so much energy, you only have so many years left, even on average. So finding the peak of what they call the fulfillment curve, because apparently the studies show that once you get to a certain point, everything beyond that is actually unfulfilling, much as that might not seem like it if you're not quite at your fulfillment yet. But it's that lifestyle creep. You're not actually enjoying life more because you have a new car, or you bought a new car 12 months ago, and that bigger and bigger and spending and creeping, that aspect, just really paying attention to it and making sure you're not falling into that trap. Then in step 7, you look at how you can maximize your income. So minimize your expenses, maximize your income. Obviously those lead to financial independence. I'm really looking at employment. This was the chapter I found the most interesting after the discussion about money, which was breaking the link between work and wages. Because work itself is a task, an activity done to a particular end. Wages is paid employment. And rather than trying to seek everything from our jobs, which I think is something that capitalism, the patriarchy, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to blame it on, has kind of led us into that culture of work is paid employment, it's fulfilling, there's a social aspect, there's a purpose aspect, why do you do that job, there's a respect, power, challenge, reward, all of those things we expect to come from our jobs. And you kind of see this when you meet people. Oh, what do you do? Like, not what do you value, not what sort of person are you, not what are you interested in. What do you do? Like, our jobs give us some status and provide all of the meaning in our life. And the reason the book says this is because if you equate your personal worth, I guess, with your work, then you're probably not going to want to give up work when you've achieved financial independence, and no amount of savings, it says, will replace that. So it's actually that chapter I found really challenging and also really interesting, especially when you think about it from the perspective of an entrepreneur or a solo business owner, sole trader sort of perspective. We potentially left jobs that may have given us some or all of those things, but now do we base our personal worth on our business? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? They don't really go into self-employment in this book, but I haven't managed to kind of untie everything and come up with a response to my question, but it was really interesting, as I said. So then we get to step 8 and we start talking about capital, because you've been saving, hopefully building up capital, and that capital should be invested, used in generating what would be a passive income, like interest income or dividends, that sort of thing, capital growth, and actually popping that onto your chart. So to get to the point where that income that you don't have to work for, that you don't need wages to cover your baseline expenses, because that is their version of financial independence. And then step 9 is just bringing kind of everything together, managing your finances, managing your investments, becoming a savvy investor. Some interesting discussions in the book about what kind of investments they recommend. They want safe, non-speculative, long-term fixed income, which really just is bonds. That was the original plan, and they have expanded it a little bit with different options, different asset classes, that sort of thing. And it was really interesting to think about bonds. I've never really considered buying any bonds. I'm probably happy to take more risk over the long term because I have time, but understanding them more and working those out more and setting up a bit of a plan to bring all of that together. It was thought-provoking. For the steps, it was quite long, the book. That's what I would suggest. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed my overview. And I have implemented some of the steps, so it was obviously good in some ways.